It may be necessary for the United States to update its banking system sooner rather than later. They require the savings which blockchain technology can provide. However, I want to discuss with you today the harsh realities of the U.S. credit, mortgage, bond, and stock markets, each of which is dealing with its own problems. The luxury that Americans enjoy as the world's reserve currency may be in danger if those problems are not resolved. Because of this, switching to an asset like XRP may be imminent. Nevertheless, let's first examine the data and determine our course both in the worst and best scenarios. I also want to explain why I believe cryptocurrency could save the day and help the United States save trillions of dollars annually. That's just what we require. Since trade treaties involve tariffs, let's take a closer look at what's happening. That is the main factor influencing markets. Let's take a closer look at this situation. Where are the trade agreements? Letter from Kobayashi. In actuality, this is a fantastic Twitter information source. Please follow the Kobayashi letter if you choose to. According to the report, since April 9th, the S&P has already lost $2,500 billion 0 cents. Thus, we have witnessed the loss of $2,500 billion 0 cents in just 12 days. This comes after the tariff delay of 90 days. Japan stated that they will not continue to back down in U.S. tariff negotiations while markets await trade agreements. A Bloomberg article stating that trade talks with Japan are in progress was published on April 16. For 5 to 10 days, markets surged on the Trump administration's assertion that more than 50 nations were interested in discussing trade agreements. A timeline of recent events is shown below. As of right now, the 90-day tariff halt is in its 12th day, and the Trump administration has not yet declared any trade agreements. The markets have already factored in at least some trade agreements, as can be seen here. But there hasn't been a signal for about 2 weeks. As you can see, the S&P peaks at about 5,500. This is the tariff pause of 90 days. The market's response to the positive move was swift. We've been trading sideways here, so it's been down, down, down. Naturally, the difficult part is figuring out where the support will be now that we are falling. I also want to discuss how China intensified the U.S. trade battle last night. China once more threatened to respond against nations that collaborate with the U.S. in ways that jeopardize their interests. This essentially means that when it comes to trade, nations have to choose between the U.S. and China. I am aware that the United States, I suppose, wants to resume manufacturing, which is why we are renegotiating tariffs. The sole issue with that is that, for example, the iPhone contains hundreds, if not thousands, of disparate components. Additionally, it takes years or even decades to set up those supply chains. The supply networks needed to assemble electrical devices and other items are not established in America. We outsource this because of this. Due of the time required to put it together, bringing this back to America would require a $5,000 0 cents iPhone, which would cost 2 to 3 times as much. Naturally, Americans do demand more wages, particularly for those positions. Then, after 5 days of headlines about the Japan Trade Pact, Bloomberg said this morning that Japan's prime minister stated that Japan will continue to send representatives to the tariff negotiations. We have previously discussed that. Our VIP members took shorts on Thursday. I'm not sure why they did that twice. Cool. In actuality, the catalyst trade agreements that were signed caused equities to rise more than 10% from their recent lows. The fact that trade agreements will take time is becoming more and more obvious. The president of Mexico just stated that negotiations with Trump today did not result in a deal. Additionally, President Trump keeps criticizing Fed Chair Jerome Powell in public. This is frightening people. This is frustrating. And perhaps this is a better term for nations like France. Hey, if something happens to Jerome Powell, it could be disastrous for markets around the world, Emmanuel Macron declared. As a result, this is a really fascinating moment. With the purpose of better understanding the amount of money that has been lost, roughly $9,600 billion 0 cents, since January 17, 2025, the day Donald Trump took office, $9,600 billion 0 cents has been removed from the stock market. In the first 2 days of April, $5 trillion 0 cents of the record $9,600 billion 0 cents was lost. When all of these tariffs were first mentioned, many people were perplexed by the percentages that didn't make sense when Trump went out there with the board and the amount of duties that would be imposed on each nation. As a result, the S&P has lost 13% so far this year. The Nasdaq has dropped more than 20% from its peak in December 2024, entering bear market territory. The Magnificent Seven is a popular investment that attracts people to the stock market. The combined worth of those 7 businesses has dropped by $2.3 trillion, 0 cents. I want to learn more about the bond market and the amount of money that has been lost. I want to show you the size of the bond market, even if it's really hard to account for it. I don't believe it gets much attention, and that's definitely a mistake in my opinion, because the bond determines the rates for your credit cards, school loans, auto loans, and mortgages. The bond market is used for all of that. Additionally, it might be disastrous for the U.S. if bond market rates are rising by 4.5% or 5%. I'll show you. In a matter of days, rates on the 10-year Treasury went from below 4% to as high as 4.5% as a result of investors selling off U.S. Treasuries at a level rarely observed outside of times of crisis. Given that yields and prices are moving in opposite directions, this suggests a sharp decline in bond prices. Although exact numbers of the entire amount lost or sucked out are unknown, the U.S. fixed income market is estimated to be worth $47 trillion, 0 cents. I apologize, I was searching the bond market for the appropriate word. You have nations cashing in and selling and all that, so I didn't want to say lost, but I mispronounced the word. Excuse me, but since Trump assumed office, the bond